But
Sure.
nowadays, and I can't speak to Bryce Underwood. Can you imagine a kid making that much money going into
So
sitting in Psych 100 class?
I talked about that. Dan and I talked about the other day. Like, and some, fair or not, right? Dude's an 18-year-old kid who's getting like hammered for not playing well in the big game, throwing for 60 yards. Pretty much the same number that Davis Warren did a year ago, right? But guess what? Like, when you make more than the majority of your coaching staff, and you make more than your professors in that
But
class, like that's going
correct.
to right. Like
But
that's
like,
going
here's
to.
my
Yeah.
point. Here's my point to Bryce Underwood. I don't know if you listen to this, but why go to class? The point of going to
Of
college
course.
is to set yourself up for a career. You've created a
Yeah.
career, but also from the standpoint of being hounded and mobbed by kids, and maybe in a positive way, like the people, everyone would be staring at you in class. You're
Yeah.
worth millions of dollars.
Could
Like
you?
I think we have to just create that separation that we have created pro sports and a school like Central Michigan, which is not pro sports.
No
Even their
question.
highest paid players still need to go to school because you can't retire off of your college earnings. Bryce Underwood could retire when he's done at Michigan. And
No
this is, I'd
question.
like to talk about this. Like, this is where you're starting to see the separation where this is pro sports people, because you're going to see kids that are going to retire off of college earnings. And I think they probably should. But a kid at Central Michigan, you're going to walk away. Maybe you find a way to make $500,000 as the best
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
Chris Kaman style player back in the day. He was in our
Yeah.
era. He
Yep.
probably would garner 500,000. Take your team to the tournament. You pack the center. If you have a really good the Dan Lefevers that would get Kelly Shorts with a lot of people there, especially for the Western game. Yeah, in their career they might make $500,000, but that's gone in 2 years.
No doubt.
Where that person has to embrace school, and I think we have to make a clear cut and just say, okay, if you're a Bryce Underwood and if you want to go to school, awesome. Congratulations. You can take online courses. You can choose whatever you want. Your group can have you sit in the back and cloistered off so that no one bothers you or whatever it may be. But we have to make a lot, because this whole thing today, especially with Notre Dame opting out, is going to be one of the starting shifting points of, again, that politicking that we're seeing. This is Notre
Yeah.
Dame standing up and saying, we don't agree with you. We
Right.
think you're wrong. And we're going to see how much power they have. And frankly, it'll probably create a lot of change.
Of course it will. And to your point, like I've talked about that with in general, like you want to solve all those issues, you give kids the option to get drafted out of high school, and then you solve all those academic issues. But like
Coach Barnes, don't get me going on this one
and
now, because I think,
I'm
oh
not saying
boy,
I'm not saying I agree with it, but here's my
no, I
point to that though.
100%
Yeah.
agree with it.
Well, here's well, okay, good. Okay, here's why. Like that's people that say, well, that kid isn't physically or mentally ready. Then that's on that NFL team. Then they shouldn't draft that kid, or they
Coach,
shouldn't
I'm
draft
telling
him
you,
and put him on their practice squad and develop
Coach,
him, because you're starting to
100%.
see a little bit of a trend in college basketball as
Yes.
kids going overseas and the NBDL and all that other stuff,
Coach,
right?
I think the
So
biggest,
that
yes,
changes everything, to your point, because it's a sham, like you just said. Like, and Bryce Underwood, like maybe he is going to class and trying his darndest, right? But you
maybe. I'm
can't tell,
sure he
but you
is.
can't,
I'm
yeah,
sure he
but
is.
you can't tell me there aren't kids who aren't they're as I think it was Cardell Jones said, I didn't come here to play school,
Right, right.
right? Like, don't kid yourself, right? Like, just call a spade, right? And
So I think that you brought up a really interesting topic that I think people, any fan needs to realize. Number one, I think the biggest investigation should be done on the NFL. And I remember when Maurice Claret and
mm-hmm.
Roy Williams, who ended up playing for the
Yep.
Lions, they
Yep.
sued
Yep.
the NFL and they did not win.
It was.
Initially, they actually won.
Yep.
Initially, they won, and then they
Yep.
came back, and their antitrust was so strong, they were found in appellate court to say, no, that's good. But I think what people don't realize is this is actually an NFL problem.
They
And
have a minor league,
they
and they don't
have
have
a
to do anything.
free
They have a
minor
free
league
minor league and have
system.
nothing. They don't have to do
Yes.
anything. Yep.
So and this is where I'm telling you, this is the thing to keep a trend on. As you see players start to retire from college football and say, I'm good. I made 10 million. I'm going to move on with my life. I'm going to take away any chance for CTE. I played in front of millions of people. What's another 10 years playing for the Packers going to do for me? And some might
Right.
still want to do it. Some, it's more power to you. But some people are going to say, like, listen, dude, I'm good. Like, I don't need to get
Yeah.
hit in the head. I don't need to break a bone. I don't need to have what happened to Aiden at the Cowboys happen to me. I'm going to move on. I'm going to
Yep.
start a business. I'm going to start a career. I'm going to go into politics, whatever it may be. I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to go to get my master's. I'm going to get go become a doctor. You're going to see people starting doing that. And what you're going to see, the NFL is going to have a response, because when that talent pool dries up, and they don't have that free flow of players coming in that are being developed and trained by the highest level resources, by the best coaches, unlike in baseball, unlike in
Yep.
hockey,
Yep.
Where if I'm the Dallas Stars, I have to fund that minor league system. I go to watch the Admirals here in Milwaukee all the time. Kids go to Nashville. Well, they get a certain amount of money from Nashville. I
Yep.
used to watch the Loons play in Great Lakes over in Midland, and the Dodgers would give them some money, right, for Kershaw to be there to make sure they have the right facilities. But you don't have that in the NFL. And I think the biggest sham is actually the NFL. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
really comical. All these agents out there, and don't get me started on agents. And I know some of them are really good and they're needed now, but nobody ever wants to attack the NFL. None of these agents, all these guys that are, these superior agents and lawyers on social media, no one ever wants to say, hey, NFL, what about your rules hindering these players? NBA, you're the one saying they have to go to school for
No
a year.
question. No question.
NFL, you're the one saying they can't. And like you said, they're probably not ready. Well, why can't you have a minor league system?
Right.
Why can't, and if it is
But you
just
know
the
what?
SEC and
Like
the Big Ten, just let's fuel this thing and move on.
Trevor Lawrence would have been the first pick coming out of high school, right? I
Jadavian
mean,
Clowney, they said would have been
Jadavian
the first
Clowney
pick
would have been the first click,
in his
right?
third
Like,
year at
so like there
USC.
are, and again, that's on that NFL team, like to surround him with, you're right. That is a rabbit hole we can go down, man. Cause
But I
that's,
think this is really relevant to today, because you're seeing it play out where we have now created this pseudo NFL, and like in Notre Dame's like,
yeah.
why are we going to go play in the Sun Bowl? Or I think
So
it'd
it's
be a pretty
not,
good bowl.
yeah. Well, it became not just players opting out of a bowl. Now it's programs opting out of a bowl game.
Right.